Welcome to the podcast about nothing in particular, where we bring words from our mouth holes to your ear holes. And today we have on Kaleigh Bishop to talk about creativity. So thanks for being on today, Kaleigh.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Kaleigh, you're newly and currently the Director of Communications at Care Providers, which congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And for those who aren't familiar with who you are, what you do, can you give us a little bit of background of how you got into communications and kind of your creative background, how you got into designing and all that?
Yeah. Long story. I would say that journey has been like a kind of a long process for me. I have never been the type of person who was like really interested in one thing. Like you like have those kids like growing up, they're like, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be an astronaut, whatever it is. I never knew what to say when people would ask me like what I wanted to be when I grew up or whatever. And so I've kind of always been like a jack of all trades. My husband Jared and I have like call ourselves Jack and Jill of all trades because we're both those type of people who like enjoy doing a lot of different things. You know, we like to just kind of like dabble in everything. And so I've kind of always done that. I grew up, in high school, I was doing theater and I kind of thought I'd go down that route. And then I ended up going to Southwestern Christian University, which you guys are both familiar with that. And I went there and then I went to cosmetology school and I thought I was going to be a hairstylist and I got my license. And I did that for about a year and I realized it was not what I wanted to do at all. And so my dad actually got me hooked up with the GMC and got me a job working as an administrative assistant. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to kind of just sit down and say, what do I want to do? What are the things that I'm interested in? What are the things that I like to do? What do I want to focus on? And that kind of gave me the chance to look at social media, look at graphic design. And I sat down and said, I want to learn graphic design. And so I did. So I started playing around with design and I realized that I really enjoyed it. And so it kind of just grew from there that I started doing social media management and then I did website management and then I started creating my own graphics and then I started my own design company and it's just kind of grown from there. So it's not something that I can like pinpoint really one moment that I was like, I love this. It was more like it just kind of like naturally grew from wanting to dabble in a lot of different things.
So it just kind of like evolved over time.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool. So on social media, obviously you're really good at Instagram. That's the only one I have. Actually, I don't have any personal social media accounts anymore. I dumped them all. I don't know if I'm going to get back on that.
He's the new trendsetter for 2019.
Yeah, no, not at all. That'd be the opposite of trend setting. That's more like being a hermit. And
minimal, off the grid.
Yeah, off the grid. Anyways, so Instagram is something you're obviously very good at. And obviously you ran social media accounts for different organizations such as Discipleship Ministries. So can you give us a little insight on how you've seen social media progress since you started doing that? So when did you start running social media accounts?
Well, so I started running social media accounts with Discipleship Ministries. So that was 7 years ago. And to think about how much we've evolved from there. So think about like, let's say the first like large social media platform really was Facebook, right? I mean, we had like blog things like Zanga or whatever, like way back in the day, whatever. But like Facebook was like the big one. Well, when Facebook first started, it wasn't even open to everyone, right? It was only for people who were in college. You had to have a college email. So I didn't get into Facebook until I was in college. Now you have Facebook, you have Snapchat, you have Instagram. I mean, like you have so many different ways that you can engage with people through a social media platform. So it's kind of amazing when you think about that's been 10 years, 15 years that we've seen such a huge growth in social media. There's like a totally new language. There's new words that we use today that didn't even exist 15 years ago. It's pretty fascinating, actually.
And one thing I've noticed on your account is you've actually been able to partner with different companies and be like a brand ambassador.
Right.
So can you tell us how kind of you got into that?
Yeah. Well, again, that was something that I just fell into.
Yeah.
My sister is really big on social media. So she's a brand ambassador as well. And much larger scale than I am. And so we kind of connected and did some things together. Back in the day when I first started doing kind of social media things, I had a blog, and so I would write blog posts, and that's when I first got started working with brands, that they would reach out, say, hey, do you want to do a blog post for us? It started that way. Then when I stopped really writing a blog, it moved to just social media. So you write a social media post. And for someone who's interested in getting into being a brand ambassador, I think social media is really interesting. It's kind of like a weird mix. But the number one thing I think for people who are wanting to be a brand ambassador is not to focus on trying to be a brand ambassador. Because if you're trying to focus so much on getting to that, like, I want to have those brands, I want to get free stuff, I want to get paid to, like, post about this certain company, it comes across as very fake.
Right.
And people, the big thing with social media, it's almost like a contradiction though. People want to see like raw, they want you to see your real life kind of behind the scenes. They want you to be honest, which is so, like I said, it's that contradiction, because most of the time what we're posting on social media is just like the best of the best. We're only showing just that one little glimpse of our life. That's not really how our life is all the time. We want to show the perfect home. We want to show like the best date we ever went on. We want to show like, our best makeup and our best outfit and all these things. But in addition to that, in addition to showing the best images, people want to see honesty in your real life. And so when you're trying to focus so much on getting those brand partnerships, it's not that honesty that people are looking for. So I've always noticed when I'm more honest, when I open up and I'm vulnerable on my social media, those are the posts that get the most interaction, the ones that get the most likes, the ones that get me to the next step with a brand ambassador. When I'm more honest, then people are open to wanting to work with me.
So part of being a brand ambassador is having influence. And how do you choose what you're using your influence for? Because obviously some companies or organizations may not be the best to present on social media. So how do you go about choosing your influence? Obviously, you being a Christian woman and wanting to be responsible with what God has given you, as well as also wanting to do it, obviously for fun, revenue. So how do you kind of make those decisions when you're on social media?
Yeah, I think that goes back to trying to balance that honesty with showing the best of the best. There have been companies that I've looked at working with that have reached out to me and I've said no, because either it was a product that I've never used before. And so you might, you want to send me free product, but I've never used this. So I'm not going to post about it if I don't know anything about your brand. Or it's one that just didn't really fit with my lifestyle,
Sure.
I'm trying to think of one, something like, some like golf brand reached out to me. It was like wanting me to like go like do a photo shoot where I was like golfing. I was like, well, that would be cool because my husband golfs, but I know nothing about golf. And so that's where that honesty comes in, is that I'm not going to work with a company that doesn't really fit with my lifestyle. And I think part of using that influence is just being honest on who you are. And so with my social media, I've never tried to hide the fact that I am a Christian. That is my focus, is that my relationship with Christ is number one. And so if I can weave that into talking about hair or talking about clothes, I mean, obviously those things are like kind of silly, I'm like writing posts and here's my face a million times on my social media. But if someone's is willing to look at my social media just because I'm writing about makeup, but then I can also kind of jump in there and put some things in there about my faith, that's ultimately what I want to do. I want to be able to use the gifts that God has given me and use the areas that he's given me influence in, which happen to be social media, style, fashion, those kinds of things, but use those for his glory. And I can do that by doing these brand partnerships and doing social media, but also talking about him through that. Right.
And that's one thing I've noticed about your social media, is that you do have this redemptive purpose about it. Because I don't try to be judgy, and I've seen other social media accounts where it seems like it's vanity for vanity's sake.
Yeah.
Which I don't know anyone personally that do that.
Those feeds, like if they post it on the story,
right?
And it's like, they do it all the time, kind of deal. It's like swipe. Like, this is for Instagram, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So obviously, I see in your account that
Yeah.
you have a redemptive purpose about it.
Thank you.
So, but have you had any judgment come your way from people saying, "Oh, maybe you're just being vain, or you're just doing it to get money, or anything like that"? Have you had any I guess
Criticism.
responses or criticism?
Yeah. I mean, I think doing social media, you're always going to have social media trolls. I've gotten away pretty easily so far. I haven't really had a lot of negative comments or things. But there have been some. There are people who, will a lot of them are like DMs. People don't necessarily post it on your page, but they'll private message you about it and say things about, whatever, like, this is fake, you're fake.
Wow.
Just like silly things like that. And you kind of just have to let it go. I mean, again, like I said, I haven't had it too bad, but the ones that I've had, I've just had to say, you know what, this person knows nothing about me, and if this is what I feel like this is an area that God has given me influence over, then I'm going to use it no matter what some stranger says on social media. You can't let that influence your life.
Yeah. The strangers behind their digital screen can.
Right, exactly.
They feel so brave and bold.
And to clarify, I do read yours.
Oh, thank you.
Your post, if I see it, I
Thank
usually
you.
don't skip past it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to all listeners out there, please stop posting on your story on the right side of the page for people to click on, because I get so annoyed with that. Like I tap to go to another story, and the link or whatever comes up, and I move my finger to another spot, and the link comes up again. It's just everywhere. Stop doing that.
It's impossible, right?
It's annoying. I will unfollow you if you do that.
Yeah, use social media responsibly. If you want us to click a link, you got to put it in the right area. You got to put it in the safe zone, just like graphic design. If you put it in the edges, it
stop making traps for my thumb.
And then an hour has passed, and you're still trying to click that
Exactly.
stupid little link.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it kind of wrapped up the talk on social media. Where do you see yourself down the road? Social media. Do you see just your account becoming bigger and having more influence, or and kind of where do you see social media going as a whole?
Yeah. Well, personally, I'd love to continue doing social media. I think, like I said, it's an area that I've been able to have a minimal amount of influence, and so it's been fun for me, and it's also an area that I can talk about my faith, and so I want to continue that. I have started working on my personal website more and writing posts there about the areas that I feel like I've kind of grown in myself, whether that's my business or whether that's my faith or, being a woman in a career world, kind of writing some things that I feel like I wish I would have known when I had first started, whether that's like how to stay focused when things are crazy and like hectic and you've got a lot of stress on you, or like what to wear when you're like first starting out in a first job. Like that was one of the things that really threw me. And that's so little, but it really was like a big deal for me. And so I've been kind of writing some more blog posts and things like that. And so I'd like to continue doing that. I don't know if I ever see it becoming like my career. Like we talked about, there are some social media influencers who do that full time. If that happened, cool. But at this point in my life, I'm kind of just open to like, hey, whatever God has for me, let's see what happens. So
yeah, maybe when you start getting some free trips to like Hawaii, then you'll be like, well, maybe I'll consider this.
Maybe I'll consider it. Social media overall, I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. We're going to continue with social media. I don't know, if that means there's going to be another platform that comes up that, takes the place of one of these other ones. I don't see Facebook going anywhere. As much as we'd like it to go away, I don't think it's going to. It'll continue to be a main part of everyone's life, unfortunately. Facebook and social media, Facebook and Instagram, I think they'll stick around, but we'll probably see another platform jump up one of these days, and everyone's going to freak out and get obsessed with it and everything.
Yeah, I was on MySpace last night.
Were you?
Yeah, I was on MySpace.
It's still,
and I was reading some articles about MySpace. MySpace, I don't know, maybe it was like a year ago. They sent out a marketing campaign, basically blackmailing people, saying about that their account was so active and that they had their old photos. They were trying to make a joke about it, but it came across kind of like they're blackmailing people and creepy. So, but MySpace has evolved devolved into this weird music website that's not as good as Spotify or anything else. So it's like MySpace is weird. So it's still kicking. I think they're trying to. Justin Timberlake, he was a big investor in the kind of new MySpace platform.
Huh? Really?
But I think it's mostly for like musicians and that kind of thing.
Well,
now.
yeah, because that's where Justin Bieber was like discovered, right? He had like his MySpace or whatever, and he'd been singing on it or something.
Something like that. MySpace and YouTube.
Yeah,
MySpace
yeah.
and YouTube,
So.
yeah. It will be the new trend 2019 for people
To get off social
to
media.
get off social media.
Yeah.
Yep. It will
It's
be.
it's too addictive though.
All the Twitter people that search everyone's history and like Kevin Hart, the Kevin Hart thing, and
Yes.
the director for
Right.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah, like you said.
Mhm.
What's that you said the other day?
The
Or
shower
like a
thought?
few weeks ago.
The shower thought.
Yeah, he's Adam's really big into Reddit. Hey,
Okay.
you ever use Reddit?
Yeah.
Adam's really big into Reddit, and I'll let you explain what happened.
Yeah, I had a shower thought while I was in the bathroom. I wasn't in the shower when I thought it.
But that's the thread, right? Shower thoughts.
Yes,
That's the thread.
It's the sub on Reddit. I posted. Some poor soul who isn't a celebrity yet just tweeted something that will be considered highly offensive in the future, and that tweet will end up ruining their career. And then other people were commenting saying like, it'll get to the point where if you don't have a social media, they'll think that you're hiding something.
Yeah.
So
No, it really is true. They're saying now, like, businesses are looking up your social media before they hire
Yeah.
you to see what
Yeah.
you're saying, to your friends or whatever. And I know people who have not gotten a job because of something they put on their social media.
Wow.
So it really is like a major integral part of our society now.
yeah.
And so that's not why I left social media, because I had stuff to hide. The reason I left was I just kind of I feel like I was getting kind of almost like addicted to it.
Yeah.
So it started with Facebook. I had left Facebook, and I tried to leave Facebook in the past, but this was months ago that I left Facebook. And I was like, you know what? The benefits don't outweigh the negatives.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm leaving that. And then
And
I
then
saw
you get a job where you have to do social media, so
Right,
you have to have a Facebook page.
yeah. Well, actually, I think it's already logged into the phone, or was
Oh,
it?
yeah?
I haven't logged into the computer yet, but
Yeah.
I think it's connected to some other account.
Yeah.
But if I can avoid ever getting Facebook again, then I'm gonna avoid it.
I
Although
don't-
I did like it though. I mean, it
Yeah.
was kind of nice keeping up with people, but
But it is addictive.
it is
Yeah.
addictive. Yeah. So and then I left Snapchat because Snapchat started getting so unbelievably dirty.
It is.
So I just I can't do this.
Which is so weird because that's like the main platform for like middle school and high schoolers, and yet you're seeing stuff like.
Are you
straight
talking
up
about the
porn.
subscriptions
Like,
and stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
bad. It's really bad.
Is it?
Yeah.
I just if I get on there, maybe once a week.
Yeah.
And I look at my friends' stories like I do on Instagram, because I have some people that are still on Snapchat who don't usually post on
Right.
Instagram and stuff. So that's what
But you don't ever go to like the discovery page or whatever on Snapchat.
I do. I used to
Yeah.
look at like the news feed and
Yeah.
stuff, but I would look at like what's that animal subscription, the Dodo or something like that.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Dodo or I don't know.
Oh yeah, I've seen.
I would look at that and like the news feed and stuff, and then they started posting memes on there,
Yeah.
which are like months old, and then I was like, I need to find the source of all memes and gifs, and it's Reddit.
So now Adam's main thing is Reddit. And then what was it? Twitter. I used to be really big into Twitter, and then I left that, came back. Once you like at a certain point, if you're like kind of new to social media, it's like hard to get anybody to follow you.
Right.
And the fun thing about Twitter is having followers, because you're tweeting back and forth.
Right. It's the conversation on Twitter.
Right. So if you can't foster a conversation, then it's just kind of pointless.
Right.
So I was like, well, Twitter's not gonna work, so I didn't have Twitter.
Yeah.
And then Instagram, which was by far my favorite, because doing photography, I like
Right.
posting on there. But I felt like my motivation for photography was becoming almost in a way that it was becoming vain for me, so I didn't like it. So I was doing all these things to try to get attention. I was like, the motivation for me doing photography is because I like doing it and I like sharing it. So I think now I'm working on a new website to kind of share my thoughts and photography and all that in a more, I guess, less, I'm trying to think of the word. Anyways, in a way that lines up with
Yeah.
my beliefs and what I want to do. So not that sharing photography on Instagram is bad, but I could see that my motivations personally weren't pure. So I wanted to change that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and that was the personal one, because, I just didn't want to do it anymore. That was pretty much it.
Have you ever watched? There's a video. Is it Simon Sinek? How do you say his last name? Sinek.
I don't know.
Sinek. Anyways, he has all these YouTube videos. Whatever. He has talked a lot about the effects of social media, especially on like the millennial generation or like whatever the next generations. and about how addictive it is and how it's like the same, like when you get a notification on your phone of a like on social media, it's the same as like a hit of like heroin. Like,
Oh, yeah,
that
dopamine
level in your
levels,
brain.
yeah.
Yeah. And so like, you're totally right. Whenever you're on social media and you are trying to post, you know, you want to get the likes because
Right.
you're trying to get influence there, obviously. But when you could become so focused on those likes and you're only posting so you can get more likes, that is totally addictive. So I think
it
you're
is.
right.
So, and
You told me.
I still get on Instagram though, because I run this one, like I said, and most of the time what I'm looking at is my algorithm for the Discover page has become either about basketball, like the NBA, or about The Office. So like the Office clips or memes.
Yeah.
So 90%, if you were to get on my Instagram Discover page for our podcast, 90% would be, what is that? 90% would be Office memes and videos and basketball videos. So that's the only thing that's like keeping me getting on Instagram is seeing Office memes. I'm addicted to Office memes.
I am too. I love Office memes.
It's so
Office
good.
and Parks and Rec, they have the best memes.
Yes, they do. I'm a big fan of both. So moving on the conversation, the Kindred Social.
Yes.
You started that last year, 2018.
So
right?
Yes, officially we started like our website, and I announced and everything last year. Actually, it was in July, so it hasn't even been a year.
Right.
But that was actually a project that I started probably 3 years ago.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So it was, again, one that's kind of evolved for me. It's a really interesting story. I had an opportunity to join a leadership team for student ministries. You know that.
Right.
And when the opportunity came up, I immediately felt like I was 100% unqualified. And I had this like freak out, truly like panic attack, thinking like, I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. No one's going to listen to me. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And I think part of it was, it was an anxiety attack, truly, for me. But also, I feel like part of it was also the enemy attacking me, telling me that the things that I had done in my past were going to stop me from doing the things that God was wanting me to do for my future. And so I had this just like moment in my apartment. It was like 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep. I like felt like somebody was sitting on my chest, and I was like, I cannot do this. And I like got up and I was walking and I was praying because I was like, God, I can't do this. Like, you're going to have to tell me. I need you to like tell me in an audible voice, like, this is what you want me to do, because I can't do this. I'm going to fail, and it's going to be awful, and people are going to hate me, and it's going to be awful. And I had this like freak out moment, and the Lord stopped me, like literally stopped me in my tracks. And he said, do you want to know your future because you want to follow me, or do you want to know your future because you want to be in control?
That's good.
And I thought, that's totally what it is. I want to be the one in control. Like, I want to know for sure that this is where God wants me to go, because I want to be the one in control. And I want to say, okay, now I know, thanks God, now I can take it from here on my own. And so I went through this whole kind of season with my relationship with Christ that I was really trying to focus more on not being the one in control, which this is still, I mean, this was, like I said, 3 years ago. This is something I'm still struggling with today, like trying to be the one in control. Letting that go and just focusing on my relationship with Christ and pursuing him rather than pursuing what I was supposed to be doing with my life. And through that whole process, I felt like I can't be the only one out there in this world who feels this way. Like, I can't be the only one who is like struggling with, what am I supposed to do with my life? How do I balance this like need to know the future and know my plan and know what I'm doing with my life with believing in God and knowing that he has my future and he's the one in control and trusting him. And so I started to reach out to different girls that I had met across the country that I felt like that I had, connected with, that I was friends with, people that I looked up to, that I thought maybe would be able to relate to what I was feeling. And so we got together and we met for lunch, and I kind of told him what I was feeling. And we just had this like really great conversation of all of us were in completely different places in life, but we all understood that feeling of wanting to know what the future was, but also trusting in God. And so that's where it started. So that was like 3 years ago. We met for lunch, and then we started meeting once a month. We would do conference phone calls, and we would get together, do like a devotion. We'd pray together. We'd ask where each other was at in life and what was going on. And we kept that up for almost 2 years. And it was from that conversation that I felt like the Lord was telling me, okay, you've done this now for yourself. Now I want you to expand it and make it an opportunity for other people. And that's where the Kindred Social kind of came in.
So where it's at now, right, is blog posts, people are posting.
Right.
Can you kind of give us the scope of where it's at right now and then where you want to take it in the future?
Yeah. So right now, Kindred Social basically has 2 arms. We have our online community, which is I do a Facebook Live every Monday. It's a Monday motivation. It's like an online devotion.
Okay.
And then we have our Kindred Stories, which are blog posts that people share their stories of what God is doing in their own life, with the intention that someone else out there is going to read this and be encouraged or inspired by it. And their story might be shared with someone that they would have never been able to meet under any other circumstances. But through Kindred Social, we have a platform that people can get the encouragement and the inspiration that they're needing that they might not be able to get in their own community. So that's one arm. The other arm is our Kindred Meetups, which are the phone calls, like I said, that I started 3 years ago. That's where we're giving just kind of the opportunity for people to start their own phone calls, whether that's like a phone call like I do, whether it's a video conference call, whether it's meeting up at a coffee shop, whatever it is, they can get together with different women and kind of share their life with each other, kind of be that encouragement, prayer group, the devotion, whatever they're needing with their group. They have the opportunity to do that through a Kindred Meetup. So those are the 2 arms that we have right now. In the future, what we are planning to do are two things that I'm wanting to start. Number one is actually we're wanting to start a podcast. So
Nice.
This is kind of cool that I get
Yeah.
to like be a part of you guys. We want to start a podcast, and then we're wanting to do Kindred Meetups on a large scale. So more like a conference is what we're
that'd be
thinking about
awesome.
doing. Probably maybe in the fall we're wanting to do a Kindred conference. I don't know what we'd call it, but a conference style meetup with people here in Oklahoma City. So
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And your experience working with Youth Quest and organizing that
Yeah, exactly.
is going to come into play.
Yeah,
Huge.
exactly.
It's cool. And yeah, definitely start the podcast. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have like a vision or like a mission statement or anything?
Not.
Or like sum it up in one sentence?
I mean, like what it is, we say Kindred Social is an online discipleship community for women.
Okay.
Currently for women.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it expand and have like an option for guys as well. But that's again like way down the line. But right now, Kindred.social is an online community for women.
And that's the website, kindred.social.
Yeah, Kindred.social, not KindredSocial.com.
What is it? What is it again?
The
Kindred.social?
Kindred.social. Yeah.
Kindred.social.
Domain names. Yeah, domain names have they're diverse. Really diverse now.
They really are, right?
So I like the .me domain name.
Right? And .church. That's a
Dot
big
church.
one
Well,
now.
yeah, when I started Borderlands Church,
Yeah.
we did .church.
Yeah.
And actually, I remember, I don't know the exact full story or the scope of it, but one of my professors was the youth pastor at the main campus, central campus or something they call it, at Life Church, and he was telling us that before the .church domain name had even been released, that it was going to be released and that Life Church was going to move its name to Life.church and that it was going to be available for all churches.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure that Life Church was integral in making the .church domain name
I think
accessible
so.
to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool, kind of insider information on it. I'm not special or cool or anything, but it was kind of interesting story that before it came out. So moving on, business.
Yeah.
You and Jared have started a plethora of businesses.
Yes.
So tell us what you got going on in that aspect. I know you have your online Etsy store, right?
No, actually, I'm not doing Etsy. So I started the Etsy shop as kind of a way to just like jump into doing design work on my own and see if I enjoyed doing it and if it was something I wanted to pursue. I did that for a year and then it kind of just morphed into doing just design work instead of having the store. So I just do like design consultations and do graphic designs on my own. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
Do you still sell popcorn?
He does, yes. So we have
love
started
popcorn.
multiple businesses since we've been married, which we'll be married 5 years in June. And so the first one, he had the plant stand, which is a seasonal garden stand. It used to be in the spring he would do, flowers and plants and all of that. And then in the fall we would do pumpkins. Then he moved to just doing the pumpkins in the fall. And we have that downtown Oklahoma City. So from October to November, he's set up downtown and sells pumpkins and some plants and flowers and things, but mainly it's all of the pumpkins. We have these giant pumpkins called Big Macs. They're like 100 pounds Huge. Or more. Wow. And they're kind of like our big kind of thing that we're the only ones in the area that have these giant pumpkins. Yeah. So they're kind of cool.
The plant stand, the pumpkin, what I like to call the pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
It's really become an institution.
It's kind of cool. Yeah.
In Oklahoma City. So
it's really funny. People have seen them. They're like, are you the pumpkin guy? Are you the
pumpkin guy?
Yeah.
The pumpkin
guy. Yeah, that's me.
That's funny.
Is your source your background, your backyard, or what?
No, actually, he has. So when we started the plant stand and he was doing the flowers and things, he had a grower named Gentry that he's become really good friends with. He's actually a guy that like Jared considers one of his really good friends, and he's older. But Gentry is one of our growers, and so he brings pumpkins up. He gets them from Texas himself, and then he also grows them himself, and he brings them up to the city for us.
Yeah,
nice. So yeah.
If you don't want that in there, we can edit it out.
Oh, it's totally fine. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, trade. You're asking for trade secrets over here, okay?
No, he does want to eventually have our own kind of pumpkin patch. It's one of his dreams or goals that we'll have our own patch and do that ourselves.
Mr. and Mrs. Pumpkin.
Yeah.
What?
Mr. and Mrs. Pumpkin.
Mr. and Mrs. Pumpkin.
The pumpkin lady.
Legally change the names.
Yeah.
So how involved are you on the business with Jared?
Yeah.
Is it more kind of like his thing and you help out, or is it kind of equal partnership, or?
It's really his thing. I mean, I do a lot of the social media, and I've helped him with some of the websites.
Right.
I create all of our promo materials, so rack cards and flyers and all those kinds of things. So like back end. But when it comes to like the idea behind the business, getting the business loans, going in and getting all of the forms and all of that, and actually running the business itself day to day, that's entirely Jared. He is the one who runs all of that, so he's pretty amazing. On
episode 9, we're gonna have Jared. I'm joking.
I mean, you really should.
we should get him on. Yeah,
Pumpkin Man.
The Pumpkin Man.
Every one of his responses is gonna go.
Probably, actually.
What does have? We would have to write 45 minutes of material just asking questions and be like,
yeah.
No, he's really cool. He's also a really good cook.
He is a good cook.
I remember he made food for us when we went on that retreat with crew.
Yes, yeah.
And that was delicious.
That's also one of the random things that he does. So we have the plant stand. He caters on occasion. We have the food truck. That's a kettle corn food truck.
Yep.
He also has a paint company that he does home renovations. And he's also working on a project called Compass that he'll have to tell you more about.
So tell us a little about your current position with Care Providers.
Yeah. So Care Providers Oklahoma, I am the Director of Communications and Business Relations. And Care Providers is an association that advocates for long-term care facilities. So what that means is that we work very closely with nursing homes in Oklahoma City area. Actually, Oklahoma, all of Oklahoma. And it's nursing homes. Long-term care facility means nursing homes. It could mean mental institutions. Mainly what we focus on are the nursing homes, though. And so we work with creating like education, continuing education for administrators and nurses within the nursing homes. We also have a program called the 100 Club, where we're celebrating people who are in the nursing homes who have turned 100, and we go and give them a plaque, and they are officially inducted into the Oklahoma 100 Club. So that's really cool. And then, right? And then we, like I said, there's the advocate part. We work on political campaigns that are for the benefit of senior citizens in Oklahoma.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's kind of random. It wasn't something that I ever thought I would fall into, but it has been really interesting. I've only been there, I mean, it'll be 3 months, almost 3 months. But I can really see the opportunities for ministry through it.
Right,
when you think about caring for senior citizens. You know, we always talk about we're pro-life, but when we think about pro-life, we usually think of the unborn child, not the senior citizen who's on the opposite end of that.
Right.
And
yeah.
so being able to
so
minister to someone who, you know, maybe is turning 100 and their friends and family are gone, that's an opportunity that I never would have expected, but it's been really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So how did you make the move from discipleship ministries to your current position? Obviously, you're now at a role where you're the head of communications,
right?
Whereas in discipleship ministries, you were a role player in that team,
right?
So how'd you make that move? Because I know that's obviously making a career. It's not a career switch because you're still in the same vein of what you're doing,
right.
But it's still a really big move. So can you tell us a little bit how you made that move and
maybe why?
Sure. Jesus. Let's start there because Jesus told me to. You know, I'd been in discipleship ministries for 7 years.
Right.
And I had transitioned through a lot of different roles there. Like I said, I started as an administrative assistant, and then I moved to a creative specialist, and then I moved to a marketing specialist. And we were looking at maybe creating a different role within discipleship. And so I was praying about that. And I really just felt like the Lord was telling me it was time to move. And he was moving me into a new season. And so I took a jump that was terrifying for me. Truly, it was like terrifying. I did not know what was coming next. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was praying one night, and I just felt like the Lord was telling me, go ahead and put in your 2-week notice, even though you don't have a job and you don't know what you're doing yet. And I went to Jared, and I was like crying, of course, because I'm a very emotional person, but I was crying, and I was like, Jared. And I told him, I was like, I just feel like this is what God has told me to do. And he like immediately was like, yeah, let's do it. Like totally.
That's awesome.
Was totally behind it, totally encouraged me. And you know, that was like, again, after that, I was like, bawling even harder. But for him to support me, like no question, where I felt like God was calling me, it was just like a really big confirmation for me. And, you know, obviously my husband is pretty amazing for doing that. But so I took, I put in my notice, and I left, and I didn't have a job for a month. And so I worked with Jared. We did the plant stand. Obviously that was right in the middle of the pumpkins. So I worked with Jared, and I did some, projects with my design company, like I mentioned, and I did some contract work and stuff like that. But through that, I just kept like praying, like, God, what is this next step for you have for me? I have no idea what I'm doing. And I applied for 1,000,001 jobs, which Nate, I'm sure you like know where that is.
Definitely.
Like you apply for a bajillion things and have no idea. Like it literally feels like you're throwing spaghetti at the wall and you're hoping something.
It's exhausting.
It
too.
really
It really is because you put so much work into tailoring the resume to the job and cover letters if it's required, and by the end of the day, if you applied for even 3 or 4 jobs, you just feel like exhausted.
Right.
So,
I mean, it's hours of work. Yeah. Sitting there, especially if you're going to tailor your resume for each application, which is what I did, and I'm sure you did too. It is work, like continually working on that to make sure that what you're submitting to this one specific job is specific to them and not something that you submitted to another job. And then going in for interviews, and like I did one process for a job application that I did that was like 4 interviews, and then there were like 3 tests I had to do. I mean, it was like this huge long process.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
So it definitely was like a month that I was so grateful for, that I got the chance to kind of have that break in between going, you know, from discipleship where I'd been for 7 years to then going into this new job, and having time to kind of pause and see, okay, what do I really want to do? What is it that God's asking me to do? And so that was like a season of rest for me, but it also was not really restful because I was doing all these applications and like trying not to worry about the future and freaking out about what I was going to do with my life and all those things. And so that was like a month there that I was working on that. And it actually, it was really weird. Jessie Burpo actually works at Care Providers with me.
Okay.
And she had mentioned that there was an opening there. And I had kind of like dismissed it. I was like, you know, it doesn't really sound like anything I would be interested in. You know, I'm looking at these other things right now. And so I didn't really think much of it. And then she came back and was like, hey, I just wanted to mention this to you one more time. And I was like, you know what? Okay, yeah, let's look at it. And so I started looking at that, but I had actually already been in the process of doing some final interviews for some other positions. There was actually 2 positions that I was doing final interviews for. And I was offered one of the jobs like an hour before I heard from the director from Care Providers. And so I was like, crap, what am I going to do?
Right, yeah.
Like, I just got this job offer, but, you know, I also have this opportunity. And so I prayed about it, and it totally made 0 sense at the time, but I just really felt like God was telling me, say no to this job and continue looking into this thing over here. And so that's what I did. And then it worked out. I met with the director of Care Providers, and it was really clear that that's what God was asking me to do.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
So that you took that leap of faith, and
Definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Which is totally out of my comfort zone. I mean, I keep talking about, you know, God speaking to me, and like there've been these times in my life that he's done that, but it's so out of my comfort zone to be that out of control. You know what I mean? And, you know, to just trust him in that way. It sounds, to someone who's not a Christian, to try to think about listening to a God that you don't see, that's invisible, and, you know, he's in the world and he's bigger than you and he's going to tell you what to do with your life. That it sounds so crazy, right? When we try to like explain that process to someone who's not a Christian, it makes 0 sense. But it's one of those things that when you are in a relationship with Christ and you're continuing to grow in that faith, that you continue to build trust, even if it is with a God that you can't see, you can still feel him in your life. You know what I mean?
That's good. It's so good. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing your story and your different aspects that you're involved in, creativity, social media. I think one last thing I want to ask you is, what do you do to stay creative and on top of creativity? Obviously, designing can kind of get to a point sometimes where you're just like, oh, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know, like, I'm like tapped. I have no creative like juices flowing in my brain anymore. So
do you ever lose like your motivation for posting on social media? Because
definitely,
yeah,
all the time. Yeah. I think like you said, Nate, whenever especially when you're doing design work for part of your living, you know, you're not just doing it because it's a fun outlet. You're doing it because you're trying to make money.
Right.
And so you're constantly making designs and making graphics. And so it becomes just something you have to do. It's not just something you enjoy. It's now something that you're doing because you're trying to make money doing it. And that can change your mindset for it sometimes. And so I've definitely gotten to the point where it's like I have no motivation. Like I don't feel creative in any way. I don't know what to write. I don't know what to post. I don't know what to design. I feel nothing. And one book, so I'm really into reading. I really love reading a lot. But there's a book that I read called The Artist's Way. And it's a really interesting book. But basically she talks about how we view creativity as this source that can be depleted. Like I was just saying, we get to this place where like we feel like we have no creativity. But if we're connected to, like she's sorry guys, I keep hitting this.
It's all right.
She is very vague about what she means by your source, okay? But you can take it to mean she's talking about your relationship with God, okay?
Yeah.
So if you're connected to the source of all creativity, then there should be no moment where you feel depleted because it's continual. You'll always have that open access to creativity because you're always in a relationship with Christ. And so how to create a lifestyle where you're always feeling creative and you always have access to your creativity. It's a really interesting book. She goes through a lot of different exercises. So one of them, one of the exercises that really helped me in my writing, because I write, you know, whether it's a social media post, whether it's a blog post, whether it's an article, I write a lot. And one of the exercises that she does is that you wake up every morning before you're even like fully awake. Don't go to the bathroom. Don't get to brush your teeth. Don't look at your phone. Wake up and immediately grab a notebook and start writing. Whatever comes to your mind. Doesn't even have to be full sentences. Don't worry about whether your penmanship looks good. Like, don't even turn the light on. Just write and just brain dump onto the paper. Get it out. And when you get into that kind of exercise of just writing, it almost kind of frees you of being worried about, like I said, what are you writing? Does it make sense? Is it a full sentence? Is it grammatically correct? Does your penmanship look good? All of those things that kind of hinder us from writing, you put those things aside and just brain dump. And it gets you into kind of this into this mindset of just writing and forgetting about all the things that will stop you. And you can apply that to a lot of different areas, but that one was specifically for writing. So if you're looking for something to help with kind of when you're not feeling creative, I would definitely suggest reading The Artist's Way.
The Artist's Way. And who's that by again?
Oh, don't ask me that.
We'll Google it. It's something.
Yeah, Google it. It's called
we'll
The
put
Artist's
it.
Way.
It'll be in the show notes. So if
Yeah.
you're listening to this,
Have you
just
ever
look in the show notes.
Do you have a trick for doing that, for opening your mind when you're sober? I guess
yeah.
like not So like when you wake up like that, you're not very cognitive. I guess.
Right. So when I'm in the middle of the day and I'm just like feeling done with it, that kind of thing, is that what you mean? Like whenever you just aren't feeling creative and you don't have the opportunity to be asleep.
Yeah, or like you sit down and you're like, okay, I'm gonna be creative and write lyrics, for example, and then you start writing. Is there like do you have like a trick for opening your mind, if that makes sense?
I think creativity is really personal to each person. And so the things that work for me might not necessarily work for someone else. But I've noticed for myself, whenever I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to draw, or I'm going to write, or I'm going to design something, and it's just not working, a lot of times it's because I have way too many things on my mind. And I'm just like, I'm worrying about, like, if it's a design that I'm needing to create for someone and it's something that I'm getting paid to do, I'm worrying about what are they going to think? Am I doing what they want? And I'm worried about all these other things rather than just designing. And so what I've noticed for myself is that if I get to that point where I'm not able to create something, I have to step away. Even if like I'm on a deadline, if I can take 10 minutes, 20 minutes, okay, I'm just stepping away from this project for a while. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee. I'm going to look at Pinterest for a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to read a book. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to step away from this for just a little bit and let myself kind of decompress a little bit. And then I can come back to a project and I feel like I have a little bit more focus on what I'm wanting to do. Especially, I see that a lot for myself when I'm trying to design like graphics and when I'm trying to write. It's just things get too much on my brain and I have to let that go. So it's not necessarily like a trigger like you were talking about to like automatically open up, your creative juices and get going, but it's a way for me to kind of let go of all the things that are distracting me.
And alternatively, you could just maybe do drugs. No, I'm joking. Don't do drugs, kids.
Some of the greatest songs are written by under the influence of acid.
I mean, it's true.
But maybe they would have been even better if they weren't on acid. Kids, if you're listening, don't do drugs. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do acid.
Stay in school.
It stays in your spine for years to come.
Yeah. I'm going to have to cut this part out. Just kidding. Anyways, so how we usually end the podcast is we call this our added value segment. So things in our life that are adding value to our life or bringing us joy and pleasure. So, Adam, you want to start us off?
Yeah, for me, it's right now is Logic Pro 10. Yeah.
So for those who don't know what that is.
Yeah. It's a basically a music software. Everyone should know what Logic is, or like main
program. Some people aren't going to even. Have
Well,
any clue
it's
what that is.
it's where you create music, so you can plug in your guitar to your MacBook or laptop, whatever you got, and plug in your keyboard or MIDI or whatever, a mic, do your vocals, and it's just so much editing. Like there's universities who hold like semester-long classes to learn how to use Logic. That's how intricate it is. So yeah, my goal is right now is to have at least one song written for me by the end of January. So
nice. And if you're wondering why Adam's voice has changed from previous podcasts,
I'm a smoker now.
he started smoking a pack a day. So
I need a pack of Marlboro Lights.
He started smoking marbles, pack a day. So, anyways, for me, my. Are you have any more? First of all, is that it?
I'm really valuing my new job I got.
Oh yeah, tell us about that.
Spectrums. Yeah, it's I've been waiting for like 6 months to start.
Why have been 6 months?
It's been like 4 months.
Has it been 4?
It's been 4.
Yeah, I guess it has been.
It's been 4 months.
It's been a while.
From September till now. And yeah, so I did trainings in September. I did trainings in November for it. It's for and Nate used to work there. He just recently got transferred to his new job for graphic design, but it's called Spec Homes Incorporated. Yeah, I'm really liking it a lot.
That's really cool.
Fun. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome organization. So
yeah,
if you're listening to this, get some money to them. They need money. So
they do. Yeah.
So anything else?
That's it for me.
So for me, my added value, I had this record before. It's Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, and I listen to it often, like digitally. But I'd forgotten how awesome that having the actual vinyl record is. So my mom for Christmas got me Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, on record again because I'd given away as a gift to someone else. So I just had forgotten how amazing having the actual vinyl record of it is in the sound quality and everything. And then secondly, I started reading it a few months ago when I lived in Kentucky, and I borrowed it from the library, and then I had to return it. And when I moved, obviously, I couldn't keep it. So I mean, I guess I could have, but the fees would have been enormous by now. Anyways, the book is Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow, which obviously inspired the musical Hamilton. I feel like I talk about Hamilton a lot, but it's a great book, first of all. And anyway, I'm done talking. I'm just fumbling over my words. Alexander Hamilton by Ron Chernow, and
Miles Davis,
Kind of Blue. That's it for me.
Awesome.
Kaylee?
Okay. Let me go real simple first. You know, it's been like really, really, really cold here in Oklahoma.
Right.
And
just snowed.
We just got snow. Yeah. I mean, like
Amazing.
sleet, slush in Oklahoma. You know, it doesn't last very long as snow.
No.
But so my husband got me last year for Christmas a heated blanket, like an electric blanket.
Yeah.
It is the most wonderful thing in the entire world. If you do not have one, do you guys have one? You need to get one.
My mom used to have one.
Oh my gosh.
I was always afraid that they're going to catch fire.
No. Don't think that way. Knock on wood. It is the most amazing thing in the entire world. So my husband is precious, and he will turn it on for me before I get in bed. So it's on the bed, and he'll turn it on for me. And then I go to sleep, and I read my book, and my bed is like heated every night. It is the most wonderful thing in the world. So
and does it get hot during the night, or it just stays at the right temperature?
It has like a timer on it, so it'll turn off in the middle of the night.
Oh,
yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. So an electric blanket is the most wonderful thing in the world in the wintertime. And then my best friends, Johnny and Becca Bland, had their sweet baby.
Yeah.
His name is Oliver. I've actually not even got to see him like in person very much because we've been traveling and we've been out of town and all this stuff. But just that he's here and that he's healthy and Becca's doing so wonderful. It's just been really wonderful to see that. So those are my two things I would say.
That's
my
awesome.
best friend had her baby and my electric blanket.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, Kaylee, thanks so much for being on the show, sharing, being vulnerable with your story, and I'm sure it's going to inspire a lot of people. And obviously, you're inspiring people through your writings and through what you do and your interactions with them. And I just saw this quote, and I saw it on there's a quote above Kaylee said that she has written on her whiteboard, and I had seen it actually on, you like posted on Instagram or something.
Yeah.
And actually it personally inspired me, but it says there are people less qualified than you doing the things you want to do simply because they decide to believe in themselves. And that actually inspired me a few weeks ago when you posted it. So I think it's a fitting into this podcast to have that quote and read it. So thanks for being on the show. Thanks for doing what you're doing, inspiring women and people across the nation with your social media presence and writing. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for listening to the podcast about nothing in particular, episode 8, creativity. Tune in next week for a new episode. So see you later.
Adios, amigos, amigas.